Hey everyone. Today, we're diving into one of the most absurd, hilarious, and genuinely baffling conflicts in military history. Forget world wars. Forget ancient battles. Today, we're talking about the time Australia declared war on birds. Yes, you heard that right. Not enemy spies, not invading forces, but emus. And spoiler alert, the emus won. The year is 1932. The place, Western Australia. Now, to understand why the Australian government thought it was a good idea to send armed soldiers against a flock of flightless birds, we need a little context. Because believe it or not, this wasn't just some whimsical decision. It was born out of desperation. The early 1930s were a brutal time globally. The Great Depression had gripped the world, and Australia was no exception. Farmers, many of them returned soldiers from World War I, were trying to eke out a living in the harsh conditions of the outback. They'd been encouraged to settle and cultivate land, often promised fertile soil and prosperity. The reality, however, was often a lot tougher. And then, nature decided to throw in an extra challenge: a massive migration. Drought conditions had driven an estimated 20,000 emus, those famously large, fast, somewhat dopey-looking birds, from the interior of the country towards the more fertile coastal regions. And where did they find this sudden bounty of food and water? In the farmers' precious wheat fields. Imagine you've toiled for months, battling the elements, the depression, and then thousands of these giant birds just waltz in and start trampling and devouring your livelihood. It wasn't just the wheat they destroyed, they also knocked down fences, allowing rabbits, another massive pest problem in Australia, to get in and cause even more havoc. These weren't just a few birds. We're talking about an army of feathered tanks, each standing up to 6 feet tall and weighing over 100 pounds, capable of running at 30 miles per hour. And they were hungry. The farmers were desperate. They were ex-soldiers themselves, so they did what soldiers do. They appealed to the government, specifically to the Minister of Defence, Sir George Pearce. Now, Pearce was also a Western Australian senator, so he had a vested interest in helping his constituents. He saw the farmers' plight, and, perhaps influenced by the fact that many were veterans, he thought, you know what? We've got machine guns, we've got soldiers. This can't be that hard. So in October 1932, the stage was set. Sir George Pearce approved a military operation. He dispatched a small but armed contingent from the Royal Australian Artillery. And here's where it gets even more surreal. The man put in charge of this unprecedented avian assault was Major G.P.W. Meredith. Major Meredith, along with 2 soldiers, was given the formidable arsenal of 2 Lewis automatic machine guns and, get this, 10,000 rounds of ammunition. That's enough to fight a small human army, let alone a bunch of birds, right? The mission? To kill 1,000 emus and then distribute the remaining ammunition to the farmers to continue the cull. The government even sent a cameraman along to document the heroic efforts. For propaganda purposes, of course. Imagine the headlines. Australia's brave soldiers conquer feathered foe. On November 2nd, 1932, the Emu War officially began. Major Meredith and his team rolled out into the dusty plains, ready to bring military precision to the problem. Their plan seemed simple enough. Find a large concentration of emus, open fire with the machine guns and, well, that was pretty much it. But what they quickly discovered was that emus, while not exactly master strategists, possessed an almost supernatural ability to evade gunfire. They were incredibly fast and surprisingly intelligent as a group. Meredith's first attempt involved ambushing a flock of about 50 emus. He ordered his men to open fire, but the machine guns jammed almost immediately. When they finally got them working, The emus had already scattered like feathered confetti in a hurricane. After their first volley, they estimated they'd only killed about a dozen birds, with machine guns. They tried mounting the machine guns on trucks, hoping to chase down the birds, but the terrain of the outback was rough and unpredictable. The trucks bounced and lurched, making it impossible to get a steady aim. And even if they did manage to line up a shot, the emus were masters of evasive maneuvers. They'd break into smaller groups, zigzag, and essentially make themselves impossible targets. One of the soldiers later remarked that if they fired into a group of 1,000 emus, they'd only hit one or two. That's a truly terrible hit rate, even for birds. The emus, it seemed, had an innate tactical advantage. They understood cover, they understood dispersal, and they certainly understood how to run like the wind. The war dragged on. Day after day, Major Meredith and his men tried every trick in the book. They attempted to herd the emus towards fences, hoping to trap them and create an easier target. But the emus, again, outsmarted them, often simply running along the fence line until they found a gap, or worse, just smashing right through it. The media, initially eager for a tale of Australian ingenuity, quickly caught on to the absurdity of the situation. Newspapers back in the cities, and even internationally, began to publish increasingly satirical reports. One headline famously quipped, "Lewis guns in action against emus. The birds are invincible." The public started to get a good laugh out of it. And frankly, who could blame them? The idea of a trained military unit with World War I-era weaponry being utterly defeated by a flock of large, flightless birds was just too good to pass up. After about a week, roughly 2,500 rounds of ammunition had been fired, for an estimated kill count of just 300 emus. That's an astonishingly low ratio. It was becoming clear that this was not just ineffective, it was embarrassing. Sir George Pierce, the Minister of Defense who had authorized the operation, was facing increasing pressure and ridicule from his political opponents. Questions were being asked in Parliament. One politician even sarcastically suggested that if medals were to be awarded for the conflict, they should go to the emus, who have shown themselves to be victorious in every round so far. By mid-November, after approximately 1 month of this ridiculous war, the operation was officially called off. Major Meredith and his men were recalled. The final statistics were grim for the humans. Around 986 emus killed, though this number varies in historical accounts, for approximately 9,860 rounds of ammunition. That's almost exactly 10 rounds per bird. Imagine the cost. The Emu War was an unmitigated disaster for the Australian military's public image. The birds had won. They had effectively repelled a trained, armed military force. It became a punchline, a legendary tale of nature's triumph over human hubris. So, what happened next? Did the emus continue their reign of terror? Well, the Australian government learned a valuable lesson. Machine guns are not the most effective tool for pest control when the pest is a large, fast, scattering bird. They reverted to a more conventional approach. Bounties were reintroduced, encouraging farmers and professional hunters to shoot emus. More importantly, the government invested heavily in barrier fencing. Massive emu fences were constructed to keep the birds out of agricultural areas. And these, it turns out, were far more effective than machine guns. Today, the Emu War remains one of Australia's most enduring and entertaining historical anecdotes. It's a reminder that sometimes the simplest solutions are the best, and that nature, no matter how seemingly docile, can always throw a curveball. It's a testament to the resilience of wildlife and perhaps a gentle poke at the sometimes overconfident human approach to problem solving. So, the next time you see an emu, give it a respectful nod. You're looking at the descendants of birds that went toe-to-toe with the Australian Army and emerged victorious. They are, quite literally, war heroes in their own right. What do you guys think? Is this the most ridiculous war in history? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more weird and wonderful history, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next adventure. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.